Yeah, we're getting a real lesson in sociology right now, aren't we? We're really influenced in our behaviors by what's being imposed on us from the outside society, right? You can't go outside of your door right now without looking at somebody and seeing them swerve to move around you just in case you have the coronavirus. You can't go to some places like you used to go to, like the gym or some bars and some restaurants. When you turn on the television, there's a lot of messages that are helping to structure our lives right now. And that's what sociology is really all it's about. It's how we behave in big groups of people. Even when we're behaving through the media, we're still behaving as a group. And so that's what we're taking on today as we study our next perspective for studying media. Our next theory, our next body of theory is sociological analysis. And one of the main authors to start sociological analysis off for us is George Herbert Mead. George Herbert Mead invented the phrase symbolic interactionism. Symbolic interactionism, and we've used those words in what we've studied in this class, interact, we've used symbol. So what does that mean? It basically means the character and the conduct of people's social interactions. The character and the conduct of people's social interactions are shaped by the symbolic meanings they assign to objects, events, and people. When you go to a sporting event and you stand up to do the Pledge of Allegiance, not the Pledge of Allegiance, to sing the national anthem, or take a seventh inning stretch, or go to the bathroom between plays, you're doing that because there are meanings that are associated with those particular events, and those meanings thereby shape your interactions. If you're having a conversation with somebody and the seventh inning hits in baseball, and you're watching that seventh inning on television, and you need to go to the bathroom, you know that it's going to be a longer break than a normal break during the game. The seventh inning is always longer. They sing longer. It's sort of the three quarters the way through the game almost, and they give people a longer break. So that means your conversation with the person on the couch is going to be affected for that moment that you get up to go to the bathroom, and you're going to the bathroom is affected by the seventh inning, which is being affected by the broadcast of the game. So that's what we're talking about here, although in much greater detail than just going to the bathroom during a baseball game. Two key terms that are involved in a sociological analysis are agency. Agency means that humans have the capacity to act purposefully. They do have the ability, theoretically, to do whatever they want. You could get up in the morning and you could walk out naked and go to class if you want, and you could eat a big box of donuts and drink beer, but you're not going to because society has some structures in place that affect your agency. So that's the next term is structure. We've got agency, the capacity of humans to act purposefully, and then we've got structure. It's any social force that constrains that agency. Now let's move into some of the major thinkers that have contributed to sociological analysis and figure out how we can apply it to media. So the next one up is Erving Goffman. Erving Goffman wrote a famous book called The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life. The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life. Isn't that interesting? The title in and of itself gives you an idea of what it's about, right? It's about how when you go out into the public, you're not just being yourself, you're presenting yourself depending on what others are expecting of you. And certainly that's true in a professor-student relationship both ways, right? I'm not acting with you like I would act with my friends. I'm presenting myself in a very particular way, and you are too when you're around me as a professor. So that's what Irving Goffman's book is about, and he calls it dramaturgy, this idea that we present ourselves in everyday life. We're always in a drama, right? We're always acting, dramaturgy. So we really do care about how others perceive us. It helps influence how we're going to behave, and it leads us through impression management. And you can now read in more detail about the different dramatic elements that go into Irving Goffman's dramaturgy, the stage, the setting, the part, and the team. This is where I'm going to require you to do some reading in the chapter to understand the details. Next up is a way of applying sociological analysis specifically to media and the way that media content is constructed. And this sociological domain is called frame analysis, and it is from Irving Goffman's 1974 book called Frame Analysis. And what it does is it acknowledges that when you see media content, it's been framed, it's been constructed, it's been through a process of selection, emphasis, and presentation. In other words, when you watch a news story, you're not getting very much of what the reporter actually went out and captured. I can tell you firsthand, having been in news myself and having been interviewed by hundreds of reporters, that when they come and they interview you, you're speaking for 10 minutes. But what appears on the news is going to be 10 seconds of what you've said. And hopefully it's the 10 seconds that you're happy with. And that's just one piece of the way that things are framed. The whole idea that I would have been selected for a news story is also part of the framing process. What is eliminated from this news story if a reporter does an interview with somebody and they have a bad vocal quality? Speaking of vocal quality, keep mine moisturized. So if you look at framing as media content, not just existing naturally, it's selected, it's edited, some stuff is eliminated, and that's what you look at when when you look at frame analysis. It's almost important to look at what's not included in frame analysis as it is to look at what is included. And that brings us to our final concept for today, which is by probably our most famous modern day thinker, contributor to the field of communication. His name is Kenneth Burke. I saw him speak at Penn State before he passed away. He wrote many books for rhetoric. A Rhetoric of Motives is his most famous book. You'll get his book in some of our other, our other class called Rhetoric and Advocacy here at ESU. Kenneth Burke wrote a book that was called Equipment for Living. And he's saying in this book that media provide individuals with symbolic resources for resolving everyday anxieties. And so going to sleep is something that many people have a hard time doing. And so what do? They put their phone on, or they play a video game until they're so tired and then they go to sleep, but the video game soundtrack is still playing. Or they put TV on, or they put some kind of nature noises, crickets or something like that. This is using media to resolve the fear of not being able to go to sleep is one way to look at it. It's a way of resolving everyday anxieties. It's one little tiny example of how Kenneth Burke's equipment living can be applied. He's got several terms, and guilt plays a big factor every time that we violate what he calls hierarchy. I'll let you figure out what that means. Every time we violate hierarchy, we try to resolve guilt. That's what we're trying to do. And then there are three terms that are going to be very important to your understanding of Kenneth Burke's Equipment for Living. And I urge you to dig into the readings on these. As you've got transcendence. Transcendence, it's one way to resolve guilt. You've got mortification, which is another way of dealing with guilt. And you've got victimage. I'm hoping that I'm tempting you to go find out what all these are about, because humans are naturally interested in guilt. Nobody wants to feel it, but just about everybody does. Nobody wants to give it to somebody else, but a lot of people do. So how do media fit into the way that we lead our lives when we are conducting our lives according to some societal structures that impose guilt on us? That's the way that we want to finish out this chapter. We're looking at agency and structure when we look at sociological analysis. The idea that you have the ability to do whatever you want in life, but if you walked out that door right now, as soon as you did, you'd be filled already with all kinds of obstructions and curbing of your behavior that you cannot do because of society's rules. So there you have it, sociological analysis. Have a great day.